Welcome everyone back to the show with no name. At least we don't have one at this point. Maybe we will in this new year. Today's conversation is all about boundaries, but more specifically, the boundaries between what AI should do for HR and what it should really never replace. And to help break this down, Emma and myself are joined by someone who works really at the center of HR's most complex and nuanced challenges. Today, we're joined by Tilt's VP of Leave Compliance, Jon Nall. Jon, thanks for joining us. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate being with you and Emma today. A little bit about my background. I've spent about 10 years working with HR teams on leave, disability, and compliance issues, helping them navigate complex rules while keeping the employee experience front and center. And no surprise, AI is becoming more common in this space. So part of my role is thinking carefully about where it helps and where human judgment needs to still take the lead.
Absolutely. We've been looking forward to this conversation, and I know that this is going to be super valuable for not just the two of us here joining you, but also for others tuning in and watching this as well. Let's dive into this already. Let's take a look at this. So, Jon, you work with HR teams pretty much every day who are managing increasingly complex leave and compliance demands. From your vantage point, what are some of the biggest challenges that HR is facing right now when it comes to making accurate and human-centered decisions?
I think a large part of it is just the volume and complexity of the leave compliance rules that just keep growing every year. And at the same time, HR is expected to be fast and empathetic and get it right every time. And all of this can create real fatigue, especially because not every leave fits a clean standard pattern even when the rules are already clear. And mistakes can have a huge impact. They affect someone's income, job protection, sense of security, and they expose the organization to real risk. So HR is constantly balancing accuracy, speed, and humanity as they navigate leave.
And when you think about all those challenges that you just mentioned, where are the areas that truly require human judgment, where you wouldn't expect any amount of automation or AI that can substitute HR's involvement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's those moments where context and empathy need to guide a decision. Sometimes when an employee is dealing with a medical issue or a family crisis or a complicated return to work, the law or a company policy might require some individualized assessment. And company culture matters too. So what feels supportive or appropriate can vary by organization. But even when these rules are clear, humans are needed to weigh facts, intent, and impact together. And I believe AI can support that process, but it shouldn't replace it.
For sure.
Definitely. And given those realities, where can AI genuinely help HR, without crossing into this territory, like you mentioned, where human judgment is required?
Well, it's incredibly effective when it's used to support consistency and reduce friction. So things like automating repetitive tasks, reducing manual tracking, catching missing information, and surfacing compliance risks. Those are all strong use cases. The kind of support that gives HR clarity before decisions are made. So I think of AI as a briefing tool. It organizes complexity, it highlights what matters, and then humans remain responsible for the final determination.
In really everyone's line of work, we're seeing an increase in people using ChatGPT to help them solve complex problems. So in the case of compliance, or making decisions about compliance, what are the boundaries HR leaders should be aware of, and what should AI really not have the final say in?
I think the line is crossed when AI starts making or implying final answers in areas that require that judgment or legal interpretation. Generic tools like ChatGPT can be directionally helpful, but they're not legally precise. They don't understand an employer's specific policies, workforce, or risk tolerance. And anything involving medical certification evaluation or accommodations or nuanced eligibility questions really require human review. And that last step, the actual decision, needs to stay with HR.
Yeah, we see a lot, even in our own work. We ask ChatGPT to help us with research or something like that. And if it doesn't know, it sometimes will just create a stat for you or create some sort of information. So I can only imagine in the compliance world, it's like, sure, yeah, that's fine. I think that sounds great. Good job. And it's always so supportive too. So that's good.
Emma, we test it all the time, and it can be good many times, but then sometimes it'll give you outdated laws or it doesn't take in the full context of the situation. There may be other laws that apply that it's not considering. So we use it to basically understand that we have some job security still as humans here, because it's not ready for prime time for making these kind of calls.
For sure.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of risk involved with just trusting whatever it says, even if it does make up something out of thin air. And I would imagine that's certainly amplified when it comes to the compliance aspect, Jon, and what you're dealing with on the day-to-day. And that really brought up a question that I've been thinking about, which is like, what are some real risks that HR leaders face when they overuse or over-index on AI, or perhaps assume it can replace expertise?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things they could do is lose trust. Employees can feel like decisions are farmed out to automation rather than considered. You could also end up with inconsistent outcomes if the logic isn't transparent or well governed. And from a compliance perspective, more specifically, errors can scale really quickly. A single mistake, when automated, can turn into a systemic issue. And AI obviously can move fast, but that makes human oversight even more important, because it can make a lot of errors quickly.
Okay, so used in the right way, AI actually makes HR more effective. So what does that look like? What does AI unlock when it's used responsibly?
I think it gives HR back time and focus. When information is organized and risks are surfaced early, there's less rework, there's fewer preventable errors, and that gives HR time, more time to spend on judgment, communication, and employee support instead of administrative cleanup. And the result then is better decisions and a better experience for everybody involved.
Yeah, Jon, after we've taken a look at both sides of it, it's clear that there can be a partnership between AI and HR when used responsibly. You know, when in the leave space specifically, what does the best partnership or the right partnership look like between AI and HR?
The right partnership is where AI does the work that is best suited to technology. So tracking timelines, flagging risks, highlighting compliance gaps. And then HR does the work that's better suited for humans, evaluating the full picture and making the final call. And so allowing the technology to handle the complexity behind the scenes frees up HR to focus on communication, empathy, judgment, those human elements I was talking about. I think that's what good leave experience management is designed to support.
And how do you see that translating into culture and employee trust?
Well, when leave is done well, employees feel supported rather than processed. Decisions are consistent, explainable, and all that builds confidence. Also, leaders then trust HR's recommendations because they're grounded in both data and judgment. And fewer surprises create stability. So all of this, the trust that comes from clarity, fairness, human accountability, and not just speed, of course, all of this can help facilitate a good culture.
Yeah. Jon, let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about more implementation for what HR professionals can do moving past this video. For those that are curious about AI, but are anxious or concerned about the risks, what would be like a safe or smart starting point for them to look into?
I think it's safe to start with low-risk administrative workflows. So you can automate some of those aspects we were talking about, tracking, reminders, documentation, before you touch anything related to decision making. And so it's important to choose tools that are designed specifically for HR and compliance, not generic AI, and build confidence gradually through small controlled use cases. And then the goal is responsible progress and not necessarily speed.
That's good advice. Thank you. Just to kind of wrap everything up here, if you had to summarize AI's role in HR's future, what's the one message that you would want HR leaders to walk away with from this conversation?
AI should support HR, not replace it. So let technology handle the organization and the visibility so HR can focus on judgment, empathy, and culture. So the future is not AI versus HR. It's AI and HR working together, each with clear roles and clear boundaries.